Emma nervously twisted the strap of her bag around her wrist, glancing at the reflection of the bustling café window. It was a chilly afternoon, the kind that made people hug their cups of coffee a little tighter, and she could feel the slight chill brushing against her arms. She had arrived 15 minutes early, hoping to gather her thoughts, to somehow prepare herself for this blind date she had agreed to out of a mixture of curiosity and loneliness. It had been years since she had allowed herself to consider dating seriously, years since she had let anyone in enough to create an expectation of intimacy. Yet here she was, sitting at a small round table near the window, notebook and pen at hand, though she had no intention of writing anything serious. She just liked the idea of keeping her hands busy, pretending to be occupied while her mind wandered anxiously over the possibilities of the encounter. The café was relatively quiet, a soft hum of conversation blending with the occasional clink of porcelain cups and the hiss of the espresso machine. Emma tried to focus on her coffee, watching the steam curl upward in delicate, twisting patterns. She sipped cautiously, trying to center herself, but every few seconds her gaze wandered to the door. Her mind raced with questions she didn't dare ask aloud. What if he didn't show up? What if he looked nothing like the pictures they had exchanged? What if she found herself regretting ever agreeing to this meeting? The nervous energy coiled in her stomach, making it hard to sit still. She tried to remind herself that blind dates were meant to be light-hearted, that nothing serious was expected, yet she couldn't shake the feeling of anticipation mingled with doubt. Minutes felt like hours, stretching endlessly as the light outside began to shift, casting a soft golden glow across the café floor. Emma found herself scanning each new customer who entered, her heart jumping whenever a man approached the counter, only to feel disappointed when he didn't notice her. She watched couples chatting comfortably, friends laughing together, and families enjoying a warm meal. The contrast between their easy connection and her tense solitude made her feel simultaneously impatient and oddly grateful for the quiet time to herself. She leaned back slightly, allowing the soft cushion of the chair to support her, and tried to focus on her notebook. She doodled absent-mindedly, drawing swirls and tiny sketches, though none of it made sense. Her thoughts kept circling back to the unknown man who was supposed to join her. "Is someone joining you?" The waiter's polite voice broke through her spiral of thoughts. Emma looked up, startled, a small smile forming on her lips as she nodded. "Yes. They should be here soon," she said, though the words sounded more like a hopeful whisper than a confident statement. She tried to keep her composure, straightening her back and brushing a stray strand of hair from her face. It was impossible not to feel exposed, sitting alone in a café with strangers passing by, their glances fleeting yet noticeable. She took another sip of her coffee, savoring the warmth, and imagined how the evening might unfold. She pictured herself laughing at something he would say, sharing a moment of genuine connection, perhaps discovering a shared interest or a similar sense of humor. Time dragged on. Emma glanced at her watch, realizing another 10 minutes had passed. She sighed softly, letting her fingers drum lightly on the table. Maybe he had been caught in traffic, she thought, or perhaps he had forgotten entirely. The thought made her heart tighten, but she refused to let it dominate her mood. She reminded herself that this was just one evening, a small chance in the vast timeline of her life, and that nothing catastrophic would happen if it didn't go as planned. Still, the anticipation was a tangible weight, pressing on her chest and filling her mind with restless what-ifs. She tried to occupy herself, flipping through her notebook, jotting down thoughts about her day, her work, the little annoyances she had experienced, anything to distract herself from the growing sense of uncertainty. Just as she was beginning to convince herself that she might be better off leaving, the café door opened with a sudden push, letting in a rush of cold air. Emma instinctively turned her head, expecting to see the man she had come to meet, but instead, her attention was captured by something entirely unexpected. Two little girls, identical in every way from their matching dresses to their tiny pigtails, walked confidently into the café. They held hands tightly, their steps perfectly in sync, and their eyes scanned the room as though searching for someone familiar. Emma blinked, momentarily disoriented, unsure if she was seeing things clearly. The girls paused, and then, in perfect unison, they looked directly at her and said, "Our daddy says sorry he's late." Emma felt her heart leap in surprise, a mix of amusement and disbelief washing over her. She wasn't sure what to say at first, so she simply smiled, unable to hide the warmth that spread through her chest at the sight of the twins' innocent confidence. They giggled softly, the sound light and contagious, and Emma found herself laughing quietly in return. "Hi. Are you twins?" she asked, her voice trembling slightly with a mix of curiosity and delight. The girls nodded vigorously, their little hands clasping each other's tighter as they bounced on their tiny feet. The café seemed to blur around her, the noise dimming into the background, leaving only the sound of their voices and the soft beat of her own pulse. It was then that she noticed the man standing behind them. Slightly out of breath, smiling sheepishly, he looked every bit as kind and approachable as she had hoped. "I hope I'm not too late," he said, his eyes crinkling at the corners with genuine amusement. Emma's nervous energy melted away almost instantly, replaced by an unexpected sense of ease. The awkwardness that had filled her earlier anticipation evaporated, replaced by something entirely new. A sense of curiosity and the sudden realization that this blind date was unlike any she had ever imagined. The presence of the twins, their lively energy and innocent charm, transformed what could have been a mundane, anxiety-filled encounter into something vibrant and full of promise. Emma realized, as she returned the man's smile, that this evening was about to take a turn she hadn't seen coming, and she felt a flicker of excitement at the possibilities waiting just ahead. Emma's eyes followed the little girls as they marched confidently toward her table, their tiny shoes tapping lightly against the café floor. She couldn't help but smile at the sheer boldness with which they approached, the way they held themselves as though they owned the place. "Our daddy says sorry he's late," they repeated in unison, their voices clear and confident, filled with an innocence that melted away all of Emma's earlier anxiety. She blinked, unsure how to respond at first. "Oh. That's very polite of you," she said, forcing her voice to stay steady despite the surprise coursing through her. "I'm Emma." The girls giggled and nodded, their eyes sparkling with mischief and curiosity. "I'm Lily, and this is Lucy," one of them chirped, pointing to herself and then to her twin sister. "We're twins. Twins are best," the other added proudly. Emma laughed softly, feeling the tension in her chest ease with each word. "It's lovely to meet you both," she said, her tone genuine. "And you're both very persuasive messengers." The girls exchanged a glance, then burst into small giggles, clearly pleased with her reaction. Emma felt a strange but comforting warmth spread through her, a sensation that went beyond mere amusement. The presence of these tiny humans had a way of instantly transforming the atmosphere, filling the space around her with laughter and energy she hadn't realized she was craving. Emma's attention was drawn upward as the girls turned to look at the man behind them. He stepped forward, slightly out of breath, brushing his hand through his hair in a nervous gesture. "I'm Lucas," he said, his eyes crinkling with a shy smile. "I really am sorry for being late. Traffic was worse than I expected, and I wanted to make sure I didn't rush in without saying hello properly." Emma smiled at his candor, appreciating the effort he had made to explain himself. There was a sincerity in his voice, a gentle humility that immediately put her at ease. She nodded, feeling the first flicker of trust for a stranger she had known only through brief messages exchanged over a dating app. Lucas crouched slightly to meet the girls at eye level, speaking in soft tones that made Emma's heart soften further. "Girls, say hello to Emma," he prompted. The twins immediately leaned forward, their small hands gripping the edges of the table. "Hi, Emma." They chorused, smiling widely. Emma waved, laughing at their enthusiasm. "Hello, Lily, hello, Lucy," she said. "You're very polite and very funny, I can tell." The girls beamed, evidently proud of the praise. Emma realized that in just a few minutes, they had already made her feel involved in their world, as though she were a participant in something larger than herself rather than an outsider awkwardly sitting at a table. Lucas finally took his seat, exhaling with relief as the girls settled beside him. Emma found herself studying him more closely, noticing the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at the girls, the subtle care in his gestures, and the patient way he listened to them chatter without interrupting. There was an undeniable warmth in the dynamic, a rhythm that made her realize this was no ordinary blind date. These little girls weren't just random additions. They were an integral part of the man she had come to meet. The thought could have been intimidating, but Emma found it oddly comforting, as if the presence of family added a layer of authenticity and depth that a typical date might lack. The waiter arrived with a tray of drinks, placing hot chocolate in front of the girls and coffee for Lucas and Emma. The girls immediately began chatting about the frothy chocolate, their tiny hands making little circles in the cups, swirling marshmallows around with careful precision. "Daddy says I'm the best at making marshmallows float," one of them declared. Lucas chuckled, nodding in agreement, while Emma couldn't contain a small laugh. "I can see why your daddy thinks that," she said, smiling at the proud expressions on their faces. There was a simplicity in this moment, a charm in the everyday interactions that made Emma feel more relaxed than she had in months. Conversation flowed naturally after that, the initial awkwardness of a blind date fading entirely. Lucas spoke with an easy warmth, sharing stories about his daughters, funny anecdotes about school projects gone wrong, mornings when they refused to get dressed, and evenings filled with bedtime stories that often ended in giggles and whispers. Emma shared her own stories cautiously at first, then with increasing openness as Lucas responded with interest and genuine curiosity. Every so often, the girls would interrupt with a question or comment, and Emma found herself instinctively engaging with them, asking about their favorite games or what cartoons they liked best. Their energy was infectious, pulling her further into a world she hadn't anticipated being part of tonight. The little family dynamic fascinated Emma. The girls had a way of speaking that was simultaneously commanding and charming, effortlessly guiding the flow of conversation and drawing everyone into their orbit. Lucas's patience and attentiveness showed a side of him Emma hadn't seen in a casual dating context, and it created a profound sense of admiration in her. She realized that she wasn't just here to get to know Lucas as a potential partner. She was getting a glimpse into the life he had built, a life filled with love, responsibility, and joy that extended far beyond any simple one-on-one date. The twins' presence, their candid laughter and boundless energy, made the evening feel alive, unpredictable, and real in a way Emma hadn't expected. By the time dessert menus were brought over, Emma had laughed more than she had in weeks. She found herself teasing the girls about their sweet tooth, sharing in their giggles, and even daring to let Lucas know how impressed she was with his parenting style. "You have your hands full, don't you?" she asked, half teasing, half admiring. Lucas smiled, his expression a mix of humility and pride. "Yes, but it's worth it," he said softly. "Every moment. They make life unpredictable, sure, but also full of wonder." Emma nodded, feeling a warmth in her chest at his words, understanding for the first time that this evening was less about romance in its simplest form and more about connection, about witnessing a small family's heartbeat and feeling included in it. As the evening wore on, Emma realized that her initial nervousness, the tight coil of anxiety she had felt upon arriving, had completely disappeared. She was no longer concerned about whether Lucas and she would click. The entire table was alive with conversation, laughter, and the occasional playful squabble between the twins over who got the last marshmallow. In that moment, Emma understood that sometimes life had a way of surprising you in the most delightful ways, and that the ordinary act of showing up to a blind date could unexpectedly lead to something extraordinary. Emma couldn't help but notice how effortlessly Lucas interacted with his daughters, the way he seemed to anticipate their needs even before they voiced them. Lily and Lucy were a whirlwind of energy, darting between small bursts of conversation and fits of laughter, and Lucas handled it with a patience that impressed Emma more than she expected. He offered gentle guidance when needed, allowed them space to explore their curiosity, and yet maintained a quiet authority that made the girls feel secure. Watching this, Emma felt a mix of admiration and intrigue. There was something undeniably attractive about a man who could balance warmth, humor, and responsibility so naturally. She realized that the initial nervousness she had carried into the café was completely gone, replaced by a sense of comfort and genuine curiosity about the life these three shared together. The girls suddenly turned their attention back to Emma, their eyes wide with excitement. "Do you want to see our favorite game?" Lily asked, bouncing on the tips of her toes. Emma hesitated for a moment, unsure what to expect, but the girl's enthusiasm was infectious. "Sure," she said finally, smiling. "I'd love to." Lucas gave her an encouraging nod, and the twins led the way, pulling her gently toward the center of their little corner. They began explaining the rules in a rapid, animated chatter that made Emma laugh just trying to keep up. "Okay, so you have to follow our moves exactly," Lucy said seriously, "or Daddy says we can start over." Emma couldn't help but be charmed by their determination and the seriousness with which they approached their little game. Soon, Emma found herself laughing more than she had in months, mimicking the twins' movements and occasionally getting them completely wrong, which resulted in giggles from all three of them. Lucas watched from his seat, smiling at the sight of Emma being drawn into the girls' world with such ease. Every now and then, one of the girls would glance at him for approval or to share a small victory, and he would respond with a proud, soft smile. It was evident to Emma that their bond was unshakable, built on trust, love, and the kind of playful joy that only came from years of shared experiences. The more she participated, the more she realized that this blind date had transformed into something much richer than she had anticipated. It wasn't just about getting to know Lucas, it was about glimpsing the rhythm of a family, understanding the depth of connection that extended beyond two people to a trio bound by love and mutual respect. After several rounds of the game, the girls decided it was time to rest, settling back into their chairs with contented sighs. Emma and Lucas returned to their drinks, now more comfortable and engaged in conversation that felt genuine rather than performative. Lucas asked her about her work, her hobbies, and her thoughts on life, but the tone was light, filled with curiosity rather than scrutiny. Emma found herself opening up more than she had expected, sharing small anecdotes from her childhood, memories of vacations, and the challenges she faced in her day-to-day life. Lucas listened intently, his responses thoughtful and encouraging, making her feel heard in a way that was both rare and refreshing. The twins, sensing the calm, began telling stories about their school day, their voices a mix of excitement and pride. Emma laughed at the little details, from how Lucy had insisted on drawing an extra star on her art project to Lily's dramatic retelling of a playground incident involving a runaway soccer ball. Lucas occasionally interjected with gentle corrections or affirmations, and Emma noticed the way his attention shifted seamlessly between the girls and her, balancing the needs of both with a natural ease that made the conversation flow effortlessly. There was a rhythm to this interaction, a dance of words, gestures, and laughter that felt organic and real, unlike the forced small talk she had expected from a typical blind date. At one point, Lucas leaned back slightly, his gaze softening as he watched Emma interact with his daughters. "I can tell they like you," he said quietly, almost to himself. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest. "I like them too," she admitted softly, surprising herself with the ease of the confession. "They're remarkable." Lucas nodded, and for a moment, the three of them sat together in a comfortable silence, the only sounds being the occasional giggle from the twins or the faint murmur of other café patrons. In that quiet, Emma felt a connection that went beyond attraction or curiosity. It was a sense of being welcomed into something intimate, a glimpse into a life that was already full and vibrant, and she felt both honored and a little nervous at the thought of being a part of it. As the evening progressed, Emma found herself sharing more laughs, responding to the girls' playful challenges, and engaging in light-hearted teasing with Lucas. Each moment felt effortless, as if they had known each other far longer than a single evening should allow. She realized that the presence of the twins had changed the nature of the date entirely, it was no longer just a meeting between two adults, but a shared experience that drew everyone closer in unexpected ways. Emma felt a profound sense of appreciation for Lucas, not only for his warmth and humor but for the evident love and dedication he displayed toward his daughters. It was a side of him that could not be fabricated or performed, it was authentic, and it resonated deeply with her. By the time they finished their desserts, Emma felt a surprising sense of ease and familiarity, as though the initial awkwardness had never existed. She had laughed, connected, and shared moments of genuine joy with a man she had just met and his two spirited daughters. The evening had unfolded in ways she could never have predicted, taking her from a state of anxious anticipation to one of warmth, comfort, and curiosity about the future. After the playful chaos of the game, Emma sank back into her chair, feeling a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. The girls had claimed victory with triumphant giggles, and even Lucas seemed relieved that they were finally satisfied. Emma laughed softly, brushing imaginary crumbs off her lap, and realized how quickly the evening had passed. The air around their table was lighter now, filled with warmth, laughter, and a sense of comfort that made her almost forget she was on a blind date. She glanced at Lucas, noticing how his shoulders relaxed as he watched his daughters chatter, and she felt a surge of admiration for the gentle patience he exhibited. It was one thing to be charming on a date, but it was entirely different to navigate the energetic whirlwind of twin girls with such grace and care. Lily leaned forward, her wide eyes shining with mischief. "Emma, you're really good at our game," she said, pointing her tiny finger at her. "But Daddy says we can teach you more tricks," Lucy added, bouncing in her seat, her pigtails swinging wildly. Emma smiled, feeling a warmth spread through her chest at their enthusiasm. "I'd love to learn more," she said, her tone sincere. "I think I can handle anything you throw at me." Lucas chuckled softly, a gentle smile playing on his lips as he watched the interaction. "Be careful," he warned playfully, "they're very persuasive teachers." Emma laughed, nodding in acknowledgement, realizing that the girl's energy wasn't something to be tamed, it was something to embrace. As the conversation continued, Emma noticed a shift in herself. The nervous tension she had carried into the café was gone, replaced by a genuine curiosity about Lucas, his daughters, and the life they shared. She asked questions about their routines, the girls' favorite activities, and even what Lucas enjoyed doing when he had a rare moment of quiet. He answered thoughtfully, weaving in small anecdotes about bedtime stories, impromptu art projects, and family dinners that often ended in laughter and minor chaos. Emma found herself drawn to these glimpses of everyday life, realizing that the ordinary moments carried a kind of magic when observed with care and attention. The twins, sensing Emma's interest, eagerly shared more about their world. "Daddy says we have to tell Emma about the fort we built in the living room," Lily said with a grin. Lucy nodded enthusiastically. "Yes. It's the best fort ever, and we're going to show her next time she comes." Emma laughed, captivated by their pride and excitement. "I can't wait to see it," she said. "It sounds amazing." Lucas's expression softened as he watched the exchange, a quiet pride evident in his eyes. Emma realized that this family, with all its playful chaos, was a unit of love and support that had its own rhythm, a rhythm that she was beginning to feel a part of, even after just one evening. Lucas leaned forward slightly, his gaze warm and attentive. "You know," he said, "it's rare to meet someone who can connect with them so quickly. Most adults are intimidated, but you fit right in." Emma felt a blush rise to her cheeks, both flattered and slightly embarrassed. "I think they're amazing," she said softly. "It's hard not to get drawn in." Lucas smiled, the corners of his eyes crinkling, and Emma felt a small thrill at the sincerity in his expression. The conversation shifted then, becoming more personal, yet still light enough to maintain the evening's easygoing atmosphere. They spoke of hopes, dreams, and the little things that brought joy into their daily lives, punctuated by occasional laughter when one of the girls offered a sudden comment or observation that caught them off guard. Emma noticed how naturally the dynamic flowed, the way Lucas balanced attentiveness to her with attentiveness to his daughters. He was patient without being overbearing, funny without being forced, and entirely present in the moment. She found herself sharing details about her own childhood, the silly habits she had, and the small victories that made her proud. Lucas listened with genuine interest, occasionally laughing or nodding in acknowledgement, and Emma realized that she had not felt this comfortable with someone she had just met in a long time. The presence of the girls, far from being a distraction, had created an atmosphere of authenticity and warmth that made it impossible to feel nervous or distant. At one point, the twins began a small debate over who would get the last marshmallow from their hot chocolate, their voices overlapping in an adorable cacophony. Emma couldn't help but laugh, holding up her hands in mock surrender. "I can't possibly choose," she said, smiling at their earnest faces. Lucas interjected gently, mediating with a playful tone that made the girls nod in agreement, and Emma marveled at his ability to maintain harmony while allowing the girls to express themselves freely. It was clear that this was a household where love, respect, and laughter were central, and she felt both comforted and intrigued by the prospect of stepping into that world. The evening drew on, and Emma realized that what had started as a simple blind date had transformed into something richer, fuller, and unexpectedly intimate. She had laughed, shared stories, participated in playful games, and witnessed a man's gentle devotion to his children, all in the span of a few hours. The experience was eye-opening, making her reconsider what she had expected from a date and what she truly valued in connection and companionship. The ordinary moments. The giggles, the marshmallow debates, the playful teaching of games, had revealed a depth of character and warmth that she had not anticipated, leaving her feeling a mixture of excitement, curiosity, and cautious hope. As they prepared to leave the café, the twins held onto their father's hands, glancing back at Emma with bright, expectant smiles. "Next time, we'll show you even more games," Lily promised. Emma laughed softly, feeling a rush of warmth. "I'm looking forward to it," she said sincerely. Lucas smiled at her, a subtle but meaningful expression that conveyed both gratitude and anticipation. Walking out of the café, Emma felt a lightness in her chest, a sense that this evening had marked the beginning of something far more meaningful than she had anticipated. It was no longer just a blind date, it was the first step into a world filled with laughter, connection, and the promise of shared moments yet to come. By the time Emma, Lucas, and the twins had walked a few steps outside the café, the air had grown cooler, carrying the soft hint of evening. The city streets glowed with the gentle warmth of streetlights, and Emma found herself stealing glances at Lucas, noticing the way his eyes softened whenever he looked at his daughters. They walked in a small, imperfect line, the twins occasionally skipping ahead or tugging each other's hands, and Emma realized how natural and effortless Lucas was with them. He never seemed frustrated or hurried, and Emma felt an unexpected sense of admiration for him. It wasn't just his charm or humor that intrigued her, it was the evident depth of his character, the way he balanced authority with affection, guidance with patience. The twins chattered animatedly about their plans for the weekend, discussing forts they wanted to build, shows they wanted to watch, and snacks they intended to sneak from the kitchen. Emma laughed at their exuberance, joining in with small comments and playful observations. "I think you might need to teach me the secret fort-building techniques," she said, smiling. Lily nodded seriously, while Lucy bounced in agreement. Lucas chuckled, glancing at Emma. "They take their forts very seriously," he said quietly, as if sharing a private joke. Emma smiled, appreciating the subtle way he included her in their small world without making it overwhelming. As they approached a small park on the way back to Lucas's apartment, the twins insisted on running ahead to inspect a playground. Emma watched them dart around, their tiny legs carrying them with surprising speed and confidence. Lucas followed at a measured pace, his eyes never leaving them. Emma realized that watching this interaction gave her an entirely new perspective on what it meant to be a parent. It was a delicate balance of allowing freedom while maintaining safety, of encouraging exploration while offering guidance, and Lucas executed it effortlessly. She felt both admiration and curiosity building within her, admiration for his skill and patience, curiosity about the man behind this nurturing presence. At one point, Lucy tripped on a small stone and let out a startled yelp. Emma instinctively stepped forward, but Lucas was already there, kneeling beside her daughter with calm reassurance. "Are you okay, sweetheart?" he asked, his voice gentle but firm. Lucy nodded, brushing off her knees, and Lucas smiled at her. "See? Nothing happened. You're safe," he said. Emma couldn't help but feel a surge of warmth at the way he handled the situation. There was no overreaction, no scolding. Just care, attention, and a quiet confidence that everything would be okay. It was a side of him she hadn't anticipated witnessing, and it made her feel even more drawn to him. As they continued walking, the conversation turned more personal between Emma and Lucas. "I never expected a blind date to be like this," Emma admitted softly, her voice tinged with amusement and awe. Lucas laughed lightly, shaking his head. "Neither did I," he said. "I honestly wasn't sure how tonight would go, but you fit in so naturally. The girls already like you, and so do I." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at his words, a mix of happiness and cautious hope. "I like them too," she replied. "They're wonderful. And I like you, more than I expected, actually." Lucas's smile widened, a subtle but meaningful expression that made her heart flutter. They reached Lucas's apartment building, and the twins clung to his hands as he led them inside. Emma followed, feeling a mixture of excitement and nervous anticipation. The apartment was cozy, filled with evidence of the girls' presence, small toys scattered across the floor, colorful drawings taped to the walls, and the faint smell of baked cookies lingering in the kitchen. It was a home alive with warmth, love, and organized chaos, and Emma felt an unexpected thrill at being included in this intimate space. Lucas gestured toward the living room, where the twins immediately began recounting their adventures from the evening. Emma laughed along, genuinely enjoying the vibrant energy that filled the room. After a few moments, Lucas turned to her, his expression softening. "Thank you for today," he said quietly, almost reverently. "For spending time with us, for connecting with them, it means a lot to me." Emma felt a warmth spread through her chest at the sincerity in his voice. "I had a wonderful time," she said, her tone equally soft. It was unexpected, but in the best way possible. They shared a moment of quiet understanding, a mutual acknowledgement of the connection that had formed over the course of the evening. The evening had transcended a simple blind date. It had become a glimpse into a life full of love, laughter, and meaningful bonds. As the twins began to prepare for bed, brushing teeth and changing into pajamas, Emma helped with small tasks, feeling increasingly comfortable in her role. She noticed the small routines, the gentle discipline, and the playful interactions that made this home feel alive and full of love. Lucas occasionally glanced at her, a look of appreciation and quiet admiration in his eyes. Emma realized that she was witnessing a family in action, not just as an observer but as someone subtly included in their rhythm. The experience left her with a sense of wonder and a quiet hopefulness, an understanding that life could surprise you in ways far more profound than any expectation. Finally, as the twins drifted off to sleep in their father's arms, Lucas turned to Emma with a soft smile. "I hope tonight didn't feel overwhelming," he said gently. Emma shook her head, smiling back. "Not at all. It was perfect," she admitted. The warmth of the apartment, the laughter, the playful chaos, and Lucas's gentle presence had created an evening she would not forget. In that quiet moment, she felt a sense of connection, of belonging, and of possibility. She realized that this blind date had evolved into something far more meaningful than she could have imagined, an introduction not only to a man she admired but to a family she could envision being part of. The apartment was quiet now, the soft hum of the city outside providing a gentle background to the serene scene inside. The twins lay asleep in their father's arms, their tiny breath steady and calm, their small hands curled lightly against him. Emma stood a few feet away, watching the scene unfold, feeling a warmth she hadn't anticipated. There was a profound intimacy in the moment, the kind that could only exist when love, trust, and safety filled a room. She felt honored to witness it, to be included in this quiet conclusion to an evening that had begun with anxious anticipation and uncertainty. It was more than a blind date, it had become an invitation into a life filled with connection, laughter, and familial warmth. Lucas gently adjusted the blankets around the girls, ensuring they were comfortable. Emma noticed the careful attentiveness in his movements, the soft murmured words of reassurance he offered, and the way his eyes lingered on them with a quiet devotion. There was no pretense, no performance, only genuine love and care. She found herself smiling softly, realizing how rare it was to see this level of authenticity in a person. "They're amazing," she said quietly, almost to herself, but Lucas heard her and looked up, a subtle smile tugging at his lips. "They are," he said, his voice gentle. "And they're lucky to have someone who appreciates them, even after only meeting tonight." Emma felt a flutter of warmth at his words, understanding the sincerity behind them. The evening had given them all a chance to connect in ways that were unexpected yet profoundly meaningful. Emma realized that she had laughed more in these few hours than she had in weeks, felt more engaged and included than she had in months, and had glimpsed a side of Lucas that was entirely authentic and captivating. He wasn't just charming in conversation, he was caring, patient, and deeply devoted to the people who mattered most in his life. Watching him interact with his daughters, seeing the love and attention woven into every gesture, Emma felt a sense of trust and admiration growing within her, a feeling she hadn't expected to encounter on a blind date. Lucas finally placed the twins gently into their small beds, tucking them in and smoothing down their hair. Emma helped with a tiny blanket adjustment here and there, feeling increasingly comfortable in this role. The girls murmured sleepily, murmuring words of good night, and Lucas whispered softly to them until their eyes closed fully. Emma stepped back, allowing him these moments, feeling privileged to share in the quiet rhythm of this family. When the girls were finally asleep, Lucas turned to her with a gentle expression, his eyes reflecting a mixture of gratitude and something deeper, perhaps hope or anticipation. "Thank you for tonight," he said softly, his voice steady but warm. "For being patient with them, for laughing with them, and for sharing yourself with us. It means more than I can say." Emma felt her heart lift at his words. "I had a wonderful time," she admitted, her voice quiet yet full of sincerity. "It was unexpected, but in the best way possible." There was a pause, a moment of shared understanding, where neither of them needed to fill the silence with words. The air was calm, intimate, and full of unspoken recognition of the connection that had blossomed over the course of the evening. Emma realized that this was no ordinary date, it was a beginning, a first step into a life that was alive with warmth, laughter, and small, meaningful moments. They sat together on the couch, sipping the remaining coffee and hot chocolate, speaking softly about lighter topics. The little quirks of daily life, favorite foods, and childhood memories that brought smiles. Every so often, Lucas glanced toward the twins' room, checking that they were still asleep, and Emma felt a quiet admiration for the balance he maintained between his daughters and their budding connection. It was a delicate equilibrium, handled with care, respect, and a gentle humor that made everything feel natural and unforced. Emma realized that this evening had taught her more about life, love, and connection than any previous dating experience ever had. Lucas's voice softened as he shared stories about his hopes for the future, about wanting to create stability, joy, and meaningful experiences for his daughters. Emma listened attentively, feeling increasingly inspired by the man before her. She saw a potential partner, yes, but also a father whose dedication and authenticity were rare and compelling. "I hope this isn't too forward," she said gently, "but I can really see why your daughters adore you. And I can see myself being part of that world, if you'd allow it." Lucas's eyes softened further, and he reached out, placing a hand lightly over hers. "I was hoping you might feel that way," he said quietly, his gaze steady. "They already like you, Emma, and so do I. Tonight has been more than I could have imagined." For a long moment, they simply sat together, the quiet hum of the city outside mingling with the faint warmth of the apartment. The twins were peacefully asleep, oblivious to the significance of the evening, yet their presence had been the bridge that allowed this connection to flourish. Emma felt a sense of belonging she hadn't anticipated, a quiet certainty that this was a beginning, not an end. She realized that love wasn't always dramatic or immediate. It could be gentle, unfolding in moments of laughter, patience, shared stories, and quiet gestures of care. As the night drew to a close, Lucas walked her to the door, the apartment now still and calm. "I'd love to see you again," he said softly, his tone conveying both hope and sincerity. Emma smiled, feeling the weight of the evening settle into a comforting certainty. "I'd like that," she replied, her heart light with anticipation. She stepped outside into the cool night, the city lights twinkling like distant stars, and took a deep breath. Tonight had been unexpected, delightful, and profoundly moving. It wasn't just a date, it was the start of something far more meaningful. Walking home, Emma thought about the little voices of the twins, the warmth of Lucas's presence, and the laughter that had filled the evening. She realized that sometimes the best surprises came in small, unanticipated packages, and that love, in its truest form, often revealed itself through patience, kindness, and shared moments that left an indelible mark on the heart. She smiled to herself, knowing that this blind date had transformed into a beautiful new beginning, one filled with laughter, connection, and the quiet promise of a future yet to be discovered.